What's up? It's Trevor Silver, a.k.a. Trevor's Life Lessons.
And it's Aaliyah Arab Smith.
And we're back with another Feature Friday, and we're super excited. We have a new guest on. I'm going to let Aaliyah tell you who it is.
Well, I feel like we could probably just start with her name. It's Nickaya Parris. There's a lot that we have to discuss with her, and it's great to have this full circle moment.
Also sponsored by R&B Kitchen. Shout out to the guys at R&B Kitchen.
Yes.
So let's get this party started. So Nickaya, it's so good to see you again. I missed you so much. How have you been, and what you been up to?
I've been good. Hi, guys. I'm so happy to be here. This is a full circle moment. It's crazy to be a guest, but geesh, life has been lifing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Life has been lifing.
So, as some of you might not know, Nickaya is the one that initially started Feature Friday, so she was the OG host. So, we'll let her dive into that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feature Friday in the building.
Yeah. But yeah, no, things have been good, been going smooth. I've been, pretty much transitioned out of the previous Feature Friday with Instagram Live for like almost coming up on like a year. So it's full circle moment once again, and just beautiful to see the ways in which the lab and Feature Friday has transformed the big things that you guys are doing, and like best hosts. So I'm super honored to be your guest.
We got the training wheels from you, and then you forcefully took them off when you left us.
I'm sorry, but listen, baptism by fire.
Oh yeah, that's what Rodney be saying.
Rodney say hostess and the mostest, something like that.
That's you, the hostess with the mostest. You killed the first episode.
No, you killed that too. But yeah, no, definitely. First thing, maybe even just to introduce to the audience, a lot of people would know who you are. I mean, you're famous in my eyes. But about like the community you're coming from, Uniacke Square, some of your inspiration. I know you have a passion for community and how that drives you.
Yeah, for sure. So for those who don't know, my name is Nickaya Parris. I was born and raised in Halifax, but more so in the North End, specifically growing up in the Community of Uniacke Square, a.k.a. the Square, a.k.a. Squizzy, Square Town. That's where the roots hail from. So yeah, it's pretty interesting in terms of seeing the ways in which community has changed, and I'm sure we'll get into a little bit of that, but yeah, I mean, growing up, I was North End Square kid through and through. I grew up playing basketball for the YMCA and going to school in the community too. Went to Joe Howe, went to Oxford, then into Citadel. And yeah, I mean, in terms of my family, so originally they hail mostly from the community of Africville on my mom's side, but on my dad's side, my dad's actually from Ghana, West Africa. So I'm half African, and the term African Nova Scotian applies to many of us, but it's something that I always hold dear to my heart. And so I have my traditional Ghanaian African roots in me, and have grown up with that part of my family and that part of my influence in my life too. So, but in terms of where I was raised, raised in the Square through and through.
Yeah, that's so dope. I was raised in the Square on the weekends. My cousins lived down there, so that's how I kind of knew your sister and the people down there.
Yeah, that's what's up. Where?
Do you know Maurice Nelligan, the Nelligan folks?
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah.
And Lulu, I know all of them. Oh yeah.
Lulu, is she in your class? Or?
No. Lulu in terms of older ones, but she's would be my sister's.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. But I know the Nelligans. Oh yeah. I was running all through there too.
Shout out to the Nelligans.
Yeah, shout out. But this is what it's all about. Yeah. So a bit of my upbringing, that was where that came in. But growing up, I just grew, I think, such a real passion for community, because community truly raised me in terms of things that I see, things that I know, how I maneuver, the respect that I have for people in community, my elders, and just seeing the ways in which resilience really truly has shown through the community in terms of like how they've adapted to things and rallied up against things, how growing up poor, you didn't realize it. And I mean, I use that term now in terms of coming to the realization of like, no, that's what it was. You didn't realize it because community truly took care of each other in a way that's very different than what we see today, but also the ways in which many of us are trying to transition that back to and keep it intact. But
back in the day, keeping your door unlocked,
listen, keep your door unlocked. Like I could be 2-3 streets over, and once them street lights come on, the so-and-so looking out their window is yelling, telling you better get home because your mom said, it's just like people knew where to look for you, that real sense of like, oh, like I'm good. If I need something to eat, I can go in so-and-so's house, and people will make space for you, make a meal for you. That's where my passion for community really grew. But then as I grew older and my love for food and nutrition, I think that's where it came from too. Like our kitchen for many Black households is where conversations take place, where you get told, okay, go about your business because this is grown folks talk. You don't need to be hearing this. But then you learn how to cook. You see someone in the kitchen, or you come in and you just know the first person to look for in your household, whether it's your mom, whether it's your dad, whether it's your grandmother, whether it's your auntie, your sister. You just automatically, for me, I go to my kitchen. Like that's just, okay, someone's going to be there. I go to my kitchen, take off my jacket, take off my shoes, have a seat. So yeah, I think when I think about community, I think about important spaces. I think about how it shaped me to be the woman that I'm becoming today, and I'll be on that journey. It started with the square, but in the kitchens. That's also where we got our hair done. Yeah.
No, definitely. Just another question. So, knowing you, how would you describe yourself? Because I feel like I see you as this vocal, very passionate person that inspires me too. With a lot of the things that I'm doing, that hostess with the mostest, I gotta keep up to that.
Right.
But
you do.
Yeah, no. Where did that that vocalness? Have you always carried that as a youngin'? You're still young, but have you always carried that from young? Have you grown into that person? Just tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes. Short answer, yes. I was the type of kid who, if we had social media we had today, I would have been viral. That's the type of kid I was. I was very unapologetic. My sister would describe me as very extra, annoying, dramatic, but that's who I was. I was fearless, always dancing, always singing, always doing something. But it stemmed, I think, from really just like my household, my family, I guess, like especially my mom, very similar to her, as much as I'm like, I don't want to admit that. Very similar to her in a lot of ways of like just her boisterousness, her personality. And it always has stemmed with me from young. I do have moments where I can be shy, but overall I'm very extroverted. So like I get energy from being energetic, but when other people are energetic. But I've also learned as I grew older to embrace being a little bit more introverted. But overall, yeah, I'd say like being the outspoken person that I am and fearless in many ways, it doesn't always come naturally, but the natural parts that do shine through definitely stem from my childhood. But I've also learned the importance of it. If you don't speak up for certain things, or you don't use your voice to get things across, and things don't get done. And I grew up with the saying, closed mouths don't get fed. So what's the worst that can happen if you speak up about something? Well, people can lose things, but if you're speaking up to things that you're true to yourself, then it's not something that's bad. It's something that you're actually living in your truth and your morals and your values. So yeah, if you don't use your voice to elevate whatever it is you're passionate about, or whatever it is that you're trying to speak to, then there's nothing bad that can happen. Maybe someone tells you no, maybe it doesn't go the way you thought, but you don't, in my eyes, you don't come out on the other end with anything less than what you started with. So I always kind of kept that in the back of my head, and it's definitely helped me. And there's times again where I gotta, oh my gosh, I'm a little nervous. Do I want to speak up? Do I want to say something? But it's just like, listen, closed mouths don't get fed, baby. You got things to do.
No, definitely.
So, yeah.
Do you find from like exposure therapy, so from the more you speak up, the more you're able to speak up when it comes to certain situations that you feel the need to?
Oh, yeah, 100%. That and like I never knew anything around that terminology or what that was. It's until I actually got a little bit older. But yes, for sure, exposure therapy is something that you can't underestimate. And it's something that I think really equips you in terms of seeing the reality behind being outgoing, right? Because in our heads or in our brains, we kind of psych ourselves up to think, oh my gosh, if I do this, if I don't do this, this person's gonna have this reaction. And it's like, you're doing it to yourself. Just breathe. They're human, just like you're human. Yes, depending on the circumstances, you might have to talk about something else, or it might be something that you're not as naturally inclined to feel comfortable to come out and say, or come out and do, or hold somebody accountable to, or vice versa. But I mean, we're all human beings at the end of the day. And I think exposure therapy, on top of reminding ourselves, like, okay, I'm talking to somebody who experiences the same feelings I do too. And who's to say they don't feel nervous giving you a certain response that you're looking for or not looking for, right? Like those type of reminders for me is like, oh, those always keep me grounded. But then I'm just naturally like a very bubbly, optimistic person. So I think in some ways, I allow that to come through, but sometimes I overcompensate with my optimism to make me feel less uncomfortable, which for some people is too much. If some people are introverted, she's like, that's a lot of Nickaya, but you'll get used to me. So
100%. I got a question for you. So when it comes for you coming from Uniacke, coming from like an impoverished state that you talked about, what kind of instilled the inspiration to overcome and get out of that situation and then be voiced so that you can bring other people with you?
Yeah. This is where we get honest. This is where we get real, I guess. Growing up, I seen a lot of things that I already knew the outcome of certain actions from things that I seen. So I didn't need to try certain things or do certain things because I already know do X, Y, and Z, that goes to that. For example, in my family, history and lineage, drug addictions and abuse is something that really impacted a lot of people. And growing up, seeing people take certain routes or seeing them not be as available and as present consistently on a consistent basis is something that I found really affected important people in my life. And that was something that I knew, okay, I don't want that to be my outcome. So what do I have to do that's opposite of that? For me, that was staying involved in sports. Basketball really, really kept me grounded, especially because Halifax growing up was a lot less developed in terms of things that you can go do and go see and just the things that are available for our youth, the things that you have today. Prime example, we didn't have social media or Feature Friday like this where you can go home and, okay, let me scroll online or see this. Yeah. It was like, okay, I'm where am I going to go outside to like have fun? So basketball, sports really kept me grounded. But then school, a little bit of a nerd, big nerd. I love.
Shout out to all the nerds.
Yes.
All the nerds. We got 3 nerds in here right now.
But I love that. I can't remember the proper word for it right now, but like having an intellectual conversation, like that is what like grinds my gears, gets me going. But also that's something that kept me on a different path than maybe some of my peers took, or even other people in my lives, whether they were older or even a little bit younger, chose to take, because I just took a natural liking to school and academics and knowledge. And yeah.
I feel like it was a math equation to where like you seen the outcomes. So like you seen, okay, what this person may have done around you, what this person may have done, and it's like this plus this plus this equals that. I don't want that. So then it's like, I find like when it comes to like coming from our communities and stuff like that, it's a lot of people, they don't see the consequences of their actions. So they just do whatever they feel in the moment is the right thing for them to do. And then it results into the outcome that they didn't want.
Exactly.
But it's like people like yourself, you see it, you know that you don't want that outcome. So you chose a different route, you choose a different route, and then you're able to vocalize and teach a different route to others by just being the different route.
Exactly. And that's so powerful. Like just being the different route, be that different route. That's so true. But also on top of that too, like my mom was pretty strict growing up, and she taught us with fear too. Like, and she was very open and honest and raw. Like as a single mom growing up, she was fairly young herself. I have an older sister, but she had 2 girls, so she was hard on us in different ways. But her rawness and realness of, listen, this is what it is. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it for you at home because the world doesn't sugarcoat anything for you. I'm gonna tell you straight up what the outcome will be if you take a certain route, or you get into things at a young age that you shouldn't be getting into, and you have this mindset of, oh, I'm grown in certain ways, but you really ain't grown to know or have those responsibilities or be able to face those consequences on your own. And part of it was she did things that she didn't necessarily want to do, but she had to do from a young age. So she already knew. Like she was just open and honest and real with us from that degree of taking a different route and encouraging us to know that it is okay. But she was also very open and honest and real about wanting us to be exposed to just so many different things. Like, for example, I was the type of kid at recess where everyone's bringing like, chips and chocolate bars for recess snack. I'm bringing a little Artifruit mango. And if you don't know what an Artifruit mango is, search it up. Delicious. Yeah. But those are the types of things that she tried to expose us to, from very early on, of just like, life is bigger than what you see. There's so many different cultures and things out there to learn. And yes, sometimes we look out our little window and we just see, for me, I just seen the North End, I just seen the square. Meaning I look out my kitchen window, I see other community housing things on the other side, but like, dream big. The sky is the limit. Like, she really instilled that in us.
Like thinking outside the box.
Yeah, thinking outside the box and using so many different things too. Different music, like dress in different ways, always embracing our hair in different ways. Like food was a big thing that she did that, with and through, and cooking different things and like trying her best to be involved through school things with us. Like I'll give a prime example. Growing up as an elementary, and I had a project that was on, you had to pick your favorite place around the world at that time. Mine happened to be Italy because I love pasta, and so I chose to do a little project on that. But then I asked her, like, oh, can you like cook some spaghetti? Spaghetti was my favorite meal at the time for my class. And I mean, growing up poor, like I didn't realize at that time that, that's a big ask to ask a single mother who don't got no car, who probably is going to have to lug this big thing of food up the street so these kids can eat it. But she did it. Like she did it. No questions asked. It was all that because she's a good cook. And it was something that like, it really stuck with my classmates so much. Many of them I still know and still close with today that like they still talk about it. Right.
Nice.
And it's something that really shaped me. So, it's probably me diverging off of what you actually asked, but just in terms of being the route and being a different route and like choosing different things in my life, a lot of it was what I've seen, and it just gave me a taste. I don't even need to try that to know. Like I already know what the outcome is. Let me do something different. Let me stick to things that make me feel good or be good. And also like when you're naturally a person who classifies himself as a leader, whether you like to lead or not, because there's certain times you're like, oh, I don't want to be the one that people kind of look to for advice. Like, leave me alone. But some people are, when people are naturally drawn to you in different ways, you do end up naturally being that different route, whether you want to accept it, whether you like it, or whether you don't. So I think, just based on things that I've seen in my life, how my mom has really influenced me and my sister and instilled different things in us. And then exposure therapy, all those things really showed me it's okay to be different. But like, I've always been who I am, and that's that. You get what you get. You don't like me, don't look at me. That's been what it is. So
I love how you speak of the inspiration that your family gives to you, your mother and your sister. I just wanted you to speak more about that importance of having that family structure there for you.
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's really important, and it's something that I have learned to appreciate and value a lot more in this phase of my life, entering into my like mid to later 20s. But it was so important. I learned so much from my mom, but also so much from my sister. I have an older sister. I also have two younger brothers, but growing up where it was just majority of myself, my sister, and my mom, I learned a lot from my sister. Like I was like, I wanted to be like her so bad that like I just did things opposite of her just to get on her nerves. But I really, I like loved her. Like for example, her favorite color was red. Mine was blue. My favorite color really is blue, but like it was just super opposite. She said yes, I said no. But deep down, I was really like, oh, I just want to be like you. Like anything, everything like you. I just wanted to be like you. So that part of like having a older female in my life who is my sister, who took a lot of the brunt in terms of things coming from the parent and being responsible. And just like, for example, growing up, my sister really, I think between the ages of like, let's say 7 and like 14, she wasn't allowed to go anywhere without me.
Dragging you around.
We laugh about now. She always never fails to tell the story when she can. But like that was just the rule. And part of it was because my mom worked like 2 jobs, so she didn't have like a sitter. And she's just like, okay, I obviously can't leave you home by yourself. Marika, take your sister. Marika's like, oh, can I go here? Take your sister. Like, oh, mom, can I go to a party? Take your sister. Like, I was like, I always had to go places with her. She hated it, but like, I loved it because I got to experience different things in life through her. She was very open and like, just exposed to so many different things too, had so many different types of friends and did so many different types of things, and she couldn't do any of those great things without bringing me, so I got to reap those benefits. So that was really important to have that role model in my life, and she's still very much a role model now. Like we're best friends. It wasn't always like that, but we're best friends. So that's important. And then but also like I didn't grow up in terms of always being in the same household as my dad, but he's always been a very, very huge part of my life and been very involved in my life, really all my siblings' lives. So on the other hand, I had the strong influence of Black females through my mom and my sister and aunts and stuff too, but primarily them. But then I also had, you know, a Black male role model actually through my father, which I know not everybody is fortunate enough to have for very different reasons, but it also taught me a lot too, and it's shown me the importance of having that nurture from a man, and a man who is as close to you as your father. He exposed me to a lot of different things too, and like I was a huge daddy's girl growing up. Like whenever I got the chance to be with him, we would go with my dad for summers, like the whole summer, because he lived in Toronto and we lived here. And come June 30th or whenever school finished, he was right there to pick us up and like drive. So we would drive to Toronto for the summer. I'd stay there, literally me and my sister, till like September 4th or 5th, literally when school started. But that whole time, like we were with him. It wasn't my mom. There was just with my dad, and my dad's whole side of the family. And so having that, a different experience of a family unit, because I had through my dad, my grandmother, and my grandfather, who were married and still together, my uncle and my aunt. So they had what would be classified as more of a nuclear family. So I got that experience of, okay, what it's like having two people in a household. These are how you do different things. This is how, from my grandmother's perspective, you are in the role of a wife, a traditional African wife. This is from my grandfather's perspective. This is how you are as a man and how a man provides for his family and those types of things. So it really kind of shaped my perception of the importance of family, regardless of what your family looks like. And you know, I know everybody's not able to have that for various different reasons. But it really shaped, really shaped who I am, my perception, and they embraced all my quirky craziness through and through. I was, like I said, I was always been that crazy kid, but they really shaped me and molded me in different ways. But when I think about your question, I instantly think about, okay, my sister a lot and my mom, which goes to show you like the huge influence they truly had on the core parts of my personality and my characteristics and just how I am. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So for me, a question from me would be like, because you talked about your dad is Ghanaian.
Yeah.
So Ghanaian. So for me, I don't have that much experience until I got older when it comes to exposure to actual people from Africa. You know what I mean? It took me to get to Dalhousie. Then I connected with a lot of people through BASc. And then I got more connected with my roots as Nigerian because I did 23andMe. Shout out 23andMe.
What's your name? What's your name again?
Chuku.
Nice.
So so I'm Nigerian, Igbo tribe. Through the DNA, that's where I got connected to. But then it made me feel more connected to the folks that I met at Dalhousie and was able to like get more rooted within my like roots, I guess. So for me, my question would be is how do you find when it comes to looking at like Black Nova Scotia historically, like, you know, we've been here for 400 years, etc. That perspective and then the perspective from like maybe a traditional African family so you got both sides of the experience and like what would you say is like the differences from the traditional versus like, and my outlook is like a lot of what we do is from like, you know, historically like recreating our own culture, but it's also like smashed with like the mainstream of like whatever's going on here, like the like what we're taught basically, or what we're told is the right thing to do. So it's like it's kind of like we lose some of our culture coming over here and then headed to where we're going is like the culture that we created over time, like from when you think about Squaretown or North Preston or wherever you're from, that's a Black Nova Scotian community. So sorry for rambling on, but it's like the perspective of being like, okay, what is the balance of what you got from both of those experiences, and the good. I'd say focus on like the good of what you got from both.
Yeah, that's a deep question, and it's something that I found myself thinking about the older that I got, just because my experiences with both were so different in very different ways. So, like I said, growing up, born and raised here in Halifax, grew up in the square, and the other side of that part is that my dad is from Ghana, West Africa, and my whole Ghanaian side of the family actually was in Toronto. That's where my grandparents ended up immigrating to when they left Ghana, and that's just where they settled, and that's just where they've been. But it's just their our immediate family there. Whereas here I have a lot of like extended family. So my experiences, like I said, with both are very different. Here, even the term African Nova Scotian, like I actually think about it from a very different perspective now, because growing up, I never thought about it that much from like my African connection, actually, which might be a little bit weird. Like I said, I've always had that connection to my Ghanaian side. But it just never crossed my mind to like think about it and think about it deeply until I got a little bit older. But here are the ways in which we create culture, I think, has mostly come just from the amount of racism and discrimination historically, whether it's overt or very discreet, that we've faced. It's like we've always felt that we have to constantly, I wouldn't necessarily say validate or make ourselves relevant by choice, but mainly by force, just for basic things and basic treatment. And out of that struggles that we went through came our resiliency. And so I always say too, like earlier I said, my community is what crowned my resiliency, but also as a people, as African Nova Scotian people and Black Scotians, we are resilient, but we also have a different level of plasticity to us, which means we can mold and adapt ourselves to different things very easily. And many things that for some people would crush them in different ways, we know how to adapt and go through just like that. It's actually a superpower.
Yeah, 100% I agree.
When
with
you think about the mental load we are able to carry, and certain mental loads that have been passed down to us generationally that you don't even realize you have until you get to a certain stage where, oh, wait a minute, this struggle that I felt like I've carried my whole life, it actually really wasn't mine. Let's say if it's financially, for example, and you grow up and you're a lot more financially comfortable than anybody in your family has ever been. You never actually went through the same financial burden as them, because you have a different experience when you're totally sovereign over your own finances, but you carried their trauma and their stress and their ability to be scarce and frugal and literally make gourmet meal at a craft dinner when you don't got to do that no more, right? Yeah. So my experience here has been just like our community is so strong. For example, the fact that, yes, I grew up in the square, right? But our last names here for Scotians are a map. It's a blueprint. It's able to literally tell you before you even know more about you, of where you are, where you come from, and subsequently where you can go. And I always found that so powerful. But it also connects to our African ancestry side, and for me, my Ghanaian side as well, because names are so important. For example, in Ghana, there's a tradition that when you have a child, their name is typically the day of the week that they're born, and it stands for different things. So my middle name is Akuya, and it means Wednesday. I was born on a Wednesday. And it's something that never really crossed my mind. It was just a thing. My grandmother growing me up, she would address me by my middle name. For them, that's the meaning of it. A lot of it comes from traditional ancient times where that's how you kept track of your lineage and, who you are, like those types of things. But it's also a tool that really served well when our people were being enslaved and thinking about the transatlantic slave trade, to keep ownership of yourselves and remember that. But similar to my middle name, through my Ghanaian ancestry side, our last names, again, like I said, is that map and that blueprint here for us in Scotia. So those are some of the similarities positively. But just in terms of my experience here with the Black culture, like I said, it's very different, because even though I grew up in the square, like I said, I can go up home to North Preston or Old Home to East Preston. I can go to Beachville, which they also classify Old Home too. Or every year when I go down to Africville, my family has our reunion. We set up our tent and our spot. I know who my people are far before. Like it's just so innate. Like, you know who you are, where you come from. You see those similarities just based off of your last name, or like older people say they knew who my mom was based on my based on my laugh and based on my walk. My mom walks quick. But that's something that like I never experienced those certain type of characteristics with my African and my Ghanaian side, because large in part, I think, was because my Ghanaian family in Toronto was so small and nuclear that it was just them. I didn't have like a lot of extended cousins that I grew up with that I knew, and things that I have here, or like I have one aunt and one uncle who's my dad's sister and brother. So those things, but our family there is really small, whereas here our family is really big. But that's just one example in terms of like the beauty of how we've adapted and how we've made things. And I think like I can only think about, having the opportunity to go to Ghana one day because I haven't been, hopefully planning to go. My grandfather's going to retire there and he's there right now. But going, like, I feel like, wow, like that's how we feel here. I think that's going to be how it feels there. But also, I think from our Black African Nova Scotian and Scotian side, it's very different when you grow up in a society where Black people are the minority and a minority on such a large spectrum where it's in your face every day. Whereas in Ghana and many places in Africa, Black people are not the minority. Like, it's not a racism structural thing, it's actually classism. So that's a little bit of, I think, different nuance when I think about my Ghanaian side as well, and maybe how I'm sure they've experienced different types of racism even on their own in Toronto and things like that, but it's not something that is as largely talked about in that side of my family as it always was growing up here. Like, from a young age, my mom always had conversations with me and my sister, like, when you go out in public, X, Y, and Z. Meaning, make sure you're talking properly, you're walking right, you're being mindful of who you're around, things that you're doing, you're presenting yourself well. I didn't always think about it from like a protection mechanism or a teaching standpoint when I was younger, but now I have the chance to reflect on and say, oh wow, like she was equipping us for when you walk out that door, the society isn't seeing you as Nickaya, Nicole's little daughter, as you're a little Black girl who in some people's eyes they fear or they think stereotypical things of you. But then also it's like embracing and trying to instill that level of confidence that many of us will only get inside our doors, because as soon as we exit them, our society breaks us down so much to the point where for some it'll make or break you. For me, it never silenced me and who I am. It actually made me that much more inclined to be like, no, I'm here. Like,
standing on business.
100%.
Period.
Yeah.
Like, standing on business. I ain't going nowhere. Like, nobody or nothing shakes the ground that I walk on. But again, like, inside my home here growing up, like, I realized my mom did a lot of personal work in terms of like complimenting me every day, telling you you're beautiful. Like, I never wore my hair straight for the first time probably till I was like 13 or 14, right? Like, I always had braids growing up, and by choice it was hers. And she's like, I ain't fussing with your head in the morning because we got places to go. But I love braids. Like, I was never ashamed or afraid of who I was. And then thinking about my African side, my Ghanaian side, that was just so normal to me when I went there too. It's like, this is just who we are. Like, I grew up eating traditional Ghanaian foods with my family when I went there, in traditional ways, traditional customs, learning traditional things. I know a little bit in terms of like the language, which is, I'm a little bit rusty. But like, for example, my grandmother, her English wasn't very good, but her Twi, which is in Ghana, the tongue that they speak, she's fluent in that. I couldn't speak very well back to her, but when she spoke to me, I could understand just like how we are talking.
And that's just from the summers being out there?
Yeah, that's just from the summers being out there. My dad can speak it fluently, but he never really taught us through and through, which now I'm like, why didn't you do that? Like, you should have done that. But that's just from the summers being out there. And like, me and my sister, we had a really, really, really close relationship. We still do with my grandparents. They taught us a lot. And still do till this day. But yeah, it's something like two totally different experiences, but I embrace them both so much more. And there's so many similarities, I think, too, culturally. I think for us here in Nova Scotia, being Black, we're just limited to the comment that you made earlier, right? Of like having to kind of shape and to form our own culture in terms of the pieces that we had left to pick up and that we were, for some, allowed to fully be out there and embrace. And even the term that we use, African Nova Scotian, this is a more so new school term. Like, they never
I didn't know what ANS was until I was working here.
Yeah.
Just like I you know what I mean? It's not as familiar
It's not, but it's something that I also know and value and think it's so important for us to continue to fight for and have that designation on so many things.
Yeah.
Because then we're just going to get watered down, and then it's like, who are we? And when you really think about our culture, it's like, we didn't really necessarily create our culture. We were given it. We were stolen our original culture, then we were given whatever culture that was here. And then it's like, okay, when you think about Christianity, it's like, hey, did we have Christianity when we were in Africa? Probably not. And then when you look at, okay, what we were all brought up on is baptism, like Baptists. And then it's like, okay, like what's our real roots? You know what I mean? And if you don't tap back in, then it's like if you don't know where you came from, then you don't know where you're headed. And then you're just here based on like, okay, you guys used to be slaves. Like, because that's what we're taught when we go to school. Elementary, you're just taught like, you guys were slaves, we freed you. So now how are you really supposed to be confident in a society where most people aren't like you? And then it's like, okay, you let me know that you freed me, and now I'm here in class with all of you guys, and you know what I mean? Like, how do I empower myself? Because you're not teaching me empowerment. You're teaching me this is where I came from. But then it's like if on us to build the confidence and be like, okay, where are we going? It's important that we have people like you that are in these roles that can say, hey, this is maybe where we came from, but this ain't where we're going, and I'm going to show you the way.
Yeah. And that's so important too. And even the part of like what they teach us in school that we freed you. Really, they should be teaching that we stole you, because I don't view us as having been people that were slaves. We were enslaved. There's a huge difference between adding that EN to the beginning versus not using it at all.
And the other thing is like they teach it in a way of like, oh, it's such a bad thing that we did to you guys and we're sorry and like let's try to move forward. But it's like they don't let you know that it wasn't an evil plan that they did. It was a monetary thing. Like we're able to like suck you guys in, make money off you. We're essentially buying you from your people, taking you to a new place to build the new place. Now the new place is ours. And now you guys are on your own to build your own culture, to create your own stuff.
And the fact that they took such large chunks and portions of our populations to build what we call now the new world, westernized world, to the point where when some of us did go back to where we came from, we weren't able to develop and establish and grow to the point where now look at the state in which some of the most beautiful places in the world are, right? Like some of them are still in the predicament they were over 450 years ago. And it speaks a lot of volumes when we think about the fact that many of us don't truly know the extent of who we are, where we come from. So thinking about, our Scotian roots and our Scotian ancestry and having to really just make do with what we have and build our own culture and things like that, that was a necessity for us. Like if you are any person that doesn't have something to hold on to grasp onto, to reference, who are you?
And that's
what are you? Like you think about even a baby, a newborn, the first thing they do is they look to their parents to who are they? Let me how do I do things? That's why babies between 0 to 2 years old, they're like sponges. Like how you blink your eyes, your facial expressions, like that communicates not only who they are, what they're doing, but safety things. For us, historically, they've tried to strip that away, so much so to the point, and they targeted generationally, so much so to the point where we're still reaping the repercussions today, and we're doing what we can, especially here in this province, but our province is so much deeper with our Black history than I think we really realize. And I'd encourage anybody who's going to watch this episode to go into online. You can go access the Nova Scotia archives and even just search your last name. That's something that I've been slowly kind of delving into with the Parris last name and kind of figuring out a little bit about my lineage, because not everybody's fortunate like myself. Like I truly do know both sides of my family. Like I said, my dad is from Ghana, West Africa, so I have a different experience where I have something to kind of pinpoint half of me back to in terms of where I actually originally come from, like who I am, who my people are, but not a lot of Scotians have that.
It's lost. Definitely. It was lost in the sauce, but we still dripping.
Ain't that for real? Preach. Yeah, we're still drippy, very, very drippy.
I find a lot of us, like from our communities, we come from like a narrative of resilience. So like you talked earlier about having that resilience, and I find it's like you couldn't break us. Now this is where we're going, and you cannot stop us. But then it's like, it's still important, like you say, to go study who we are so that we could continuously move forward. Because thinking about North Preston, I know a lot of the older folks used to say, like, the narrative is they put us out here to die. Like basically we're supposed to get land that was fruitful. They gave us land that wasn't. You're on your own. You're way out in the woods, basically. And then it's like 10, 20 kilometers to walk in town to get food back in my like grandmother's time. So it's like they literally put you out here to die, and then it's like for you to survive and thrive and be able to have that the narrative of resilience. It's like for us younger people, it's like like think about our grandparents, the educational levels that they might have been afforded, and then our parents, and then us. It's like we're in a generation of so much privilege that it's like we're able to go to school, we're able to educate, we're able to have with our phones, we're able to like learn anything that we want. So there's not that many barriers. The barriers are mental, like the stuff that we put on ourselves. So it's like building and cultivating that confidence to instill in other people and be like, hey, you can do this, whatever it is that you want to do, pursue it, but don't be brainwashed into thinking like you have to be this perfect person and in this perfect place, and like thinking like you got to be what you see on TV. You don't, because what you're spoon fed on TV of what blackness is or what like authenticness is not. Like those young guys in them movies and them shows, that's what we're sold our culture is. Like, oh, you got to have a gun and you got to sell dope and you got to pimp and you got to do this stuff. And so like on the psyche, I'm just speaking on a young black male's perspective, is like that's who we think we are. So like if we think that's who we're supposed to be, then we pursue that in certain ways. But if we're not seeing people in community that are entrepreneurs, business owners, coming from like multi-generational wealth, like most people that are wealthy now, like they're the first people ever. You know what I mean? But then you look at other people that you may meet at Dalhousie or you may meet in wherever you meet them, but they come from like hundreds of years of like money. Like think about like back in the day, like if you own a house in the South End, those houses worth $1 million right now. We come from a place where we had to build our, like no one is coming to my community to buy my house from me.
No.
Because they put us out there to be like, oh, the house is the land has no value to us, so like we'll give it to you guys, and you guys gotta survive on your own.
Make it what it is. But you see the shift that we're having in terms of influx of migration internally to Canada and immigration globally, with people seeing the East Coast and Nova Scotia as such a sweet spot, to the point where there actually is, and thinking about like the Preston townships, there's people buying that. Like
trust me, there's a white family that bought a house up there.
And I'm pretty sure a family who's Indian as well. So I heard
Sorry,
that.
I take it back. It wasn't white, it was Indian. That's what I meant.
And it's crazy. Like, for me, I don't know. I heard that the other day and I was like, that's crazy. Yeah. Not to say crazy in a bad way, but it's like. Yeah.
And you know what it is? It's because like the perspective, like think about like in town. Most people that are from here that are not black would never, ever even think about buying a house in North Preston. Like from whatever they observed in the news, whatever they, you know what I mean? But someone that's coming from Toronto, that may be coming from India, when they come here, they're not getting all those negative views. They're just like, oh, there's a house in this community that I can go buy.
They have no context, and their context of what it can be and what it was was never shaped.
It's a come up. It's definitely a come up because now they got a house.
But now to speak to that though, with the lack of context, sometimes I feel like that also is a negative thing too. When people come here, we want to make sure that they know of our communities and our significance, and not just the negative connotations that that come with it. So yeah, that's another thing that kind of made me think of, is knowing where he's purchasing that house and the history of the people that are on that house, right?
To me it's a good thing, because what it's going to allow is now you have an Indian community or Indian family in the community that's going to be able to integrate with the community, that's going to be able to have a new perspective and be like, the people that they might talk to in town be like, oh, that's like a bad community. They're looking at them like, what do you mean a bad community? Like I live there. Like these people are the same as you and me.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's very interesting when we think about, for us, all three of us, we have our own experiences and has been able to see the transition. But even when I think about like the North End of Halifax too, right? Like God, the gentrification here is
mad,
real. Like, and that's I'm speaking on experiences. Okay, like I ran all of them down these streets when I was growing up. Coming down to the waterfront from the square was like a foreign territory to me. Like it was like, this is a whole new world, and the waterfront didn't look what it looks like today. So it's crazy to see, but also it has pros and cons to it as well, right? Like thinking about, new families coming into communities, it's great, and having that exposure, but then also too, it's like, how is that going to possibly shape and change our communities? So many of our communities here are going through grief and loss like no tomorrow, of all ages, all different classes. It's a lot.
I think the new thing too, when it comes to like the influx of immigrants coming to Uniacke Square, because that's what I'm seeing, it's different than what our perspective was or our experience was, because you're coming up and you're coming from slavery. So you're coming up in housing, you're coming up in these situations to where you don't have that motivation or that inspiration of this Canadian or American dream.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm in this situation, don't know how to get out. This is where I'm at. This is what we're gonna be. The people that are coming here, they're like, oh my God, like Uniacke Square is like
luxury.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
100% luxury. So then for them, it's like they can climb up out of it.
Right.
But when you come in from generations of generations in this situation, it's hard to come out of it. Like I've read studies where like 80% of people, families that are on assistance, is gonna be on assistance. Like the generation is gonna continuously go until someone breaks the cycle to where it makes a difference, and then they show a different way for their family. And it's not easy because
It's
but there's so many different implications, and I can't really get into the nuances of it. But it's people are so quick to say like, oh, like why don't you just get off assistance? Why don't you just go get a job? Why don't you just do that? But it's 400 years of like. You were doing like your family, like our great grandparents were doing free labor. Basically, they were getting food and shelter.
Yep.
And then now it's like, okay, you get food and shelter, but it's like you need to have that. What's the word? It's like I don't know the word for it, but you guys get what I'm saying when it comes to like that self direction of like full autonomy on yourself to make it versus like we never were trained to.
Self-determination. You really have to have that drive, and it's so true. Like. The historical poverty, but then how that translates into intergenerational poverty, and not even realizing it's a trap until you get to a certain point in your life where like it's okay, like how do I get out of this? But where do I turn to? Because I don't know how. Like I'm engaged. Love my fiance. Shout out to him.
Shout out to him.
We both come from families that lived in community housing. Owning a home one day is our dream. We wouldn't even know where to start. Like to look for a home, to think about, okay, how do I go through that process?
Yeah.
And I mean, we have the power of Google at our fingertips and all these things, and we're both educated, we both have great jobs, we're both, great. We'll get there. Like I'm like it's not in that like that self-determination piece clicks in. But we also don't have the privilege of having people who we're close with or comfortable with in our immediate family to seek guidance from on certain life transitions, because we will be the first.
Yeah.
Right? So it's that piece of you, like you said, of intergenerational poverty. And even when we think about public housing, like many of our families, like when you grow up in public housing, you're probably going to take over your parents' unit because they're putting you on the lease and you'll take over that.
And that's part of the culture. That's part of the moving to the next generation to be like, oh, I need that. Don't lose that. You can't lose that because then where are we going to live at?
I know. Yeah. And that's the thing. And I mean, you think about the state of today's current place and time for some, that provides such a sense of security and like, oh, this is good. I know I always got a roof over my head. A term that goes on in the community that I grew up hearing was I'm grandfathered in. Yeah. When people say they're grandfathered into housing, it's like, oh yeah, they think they're the OGs to the point where like they're doing things to these. You don't own this.
Yeah. They doing their houses up like they're doing their cars up.
Deck it out.
And I mean, I on one hand, there ain't nothing wrong making yourself comfortable. But on the other hand, it's that mindset of you don't even have, either A, you don't have any self-determination to get out of this, to have ownership of something. B, the thought of it is a little bit nerve-wracking, so you don't really want to do it. Or C, you feel like it's never going to come, so let me just live the best that I can. And all three of those situations in my eyes is sad, but also something that subconsciously gets passed down to different generations in our communities. I think of like, the Preston Township's a little bit different, right? I mean,
it's similar in a sense because a lot of people that you got like I was raised by my grandmother, and it's like you live there, then your aunts and your uncles might live there too, and then so it's like everybody is basically, because when you come from like my grandparents were hard workers, so like my grandfather built the house with his hands, so it's like you have a home, you have a homestead, you can always go back to that, and I think that is the thing that we're afforded when coming from a certain place where we're able to go in the world, mess up, and then be able to come back home. And you know what I mean?
Home will always be there for you. Yeah, no, and it's something that like for us in terms of growing up in the square and in the North End, like I said, my family comes from Africville within my mom's side, and both my mom's mom and my mom's dad, both of her families, the Parrises in the house, hail from Africville, both of which played large parts of the community of Africville as a whole. Majority of us from there were moved to either the Community of Uniacke Square or Mulgrave. Some of them were moved to the pubs, but then back then, the early, 50s, 60s, the pubs was actually a public housing unit for white families who were underserved within the Westmount area and all those types of things.
It displaces the people. Like you're in this position where you got Africville. Africville is the land. You have it. It's valuable. Well, it wasn't value at first, but then when it became value, it's like, hey, pull this rug and give us that land. Then we displace you guys into all these different housing units, and then you're all broken up to where like, if you did have a unit here where you could rise up, it's like, now what are the chances? Because even when I think about it on a day-to-day, it's like, where did all the people go that we grew up with when we were in the square? Like, where are they at now? Like, and when you think about the housing crisis, it's like, really, where are the people?
Where are the people? Yeah. And you think about, for instance, for myself, girl, I would be able to walk around the square and say, Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so lives in these units, and this is where, I can't do that now. I don't know. I don't know of very many original Africvillian families or Black families who migrated to the square that still live in those certain units. And where did you go? A lot of people moved out of the province. Myself was one that was guilty. I left for 6 years pursuing school and stuff, but I came back. But a lot of people felt like, I can't do anything here. But then to the other conversation that we had around public housing and intergenerational poverty, a lot of us felt like those units were ours because that's where we got put. And the government actually sold a dream of you can actually own this one day when that was never the case.
And I find it's like a project. When you look at the U.S., like New York, they got these big, huge buildings where the people are living, like the square, but it's like the square is a project. And then when you look at it on a bigger scale, it's like a lot of the stuff that we participated in was basically modeled from what they did in America. So it's like on a small, super small scale, but it's still like, in that instance, is like, this is how we're perceived. This is how we look. Like, even if you look at people, like they look. I don't know if they still do, but they looked at the square like North Preston. It's like, oh, don't go there. Don't walk through there at night. Don't,
that's
you know what I mean?
But
it's like,
for the bad rep.
And not even that. They looked at that part of the North End of Halifax as that in general, which the North End of Halifax is from the square all the way up past when Gottingen changes from Gottingen to Novalee. The Novalee part, back then, historically, there was a huge fight. They didn't want to be classified as being associated with North End of Halifax because the North End had a bad picture. And then when you think about the community of Mulgrave Park, who's basically situated on that cusp of being close to Gottingen and being close to the Novalee side as well, I'm sure they went through a lot of very different struggles. But Canada as a whole, as a country, looks to the U.S. for guidance in many ways that they shouldn't. But it's the implications and the, I think, of unthought ramifications of certain projects and how much it really impacts generations is far, like, we are still in that phase of how much does it actually impact these generations. And as we transition into new things of, again, embracing our newcomers that come and having them moved into some of these housing units and projects, it's
the goal is like, how do we empower our people? How do we empower not just our people, but people in general? And through podcasts like this and through conversations like this, it's important to be like, okay, we need the information, we need the assistance, and we need the education to like empower each other. Like if you're doing it, you're letting Aaliyah know that she can do it. She letting me know that we can do it. And then we work towards a better tomorrow. And I find that's through mentorship, education, through so many different things, through like even like government programs that allow the assistance or the funding that can go to the youth that need the guidance. And I think that stuff is super important, because how else, like, it's just let them do it on their own. It's like, how, you know what I mean? You can't.
You can't. Like, everybody and everything needs some sort of guidance and direction, whether that's mentally, physically, emotionally, or spiritually. You need something to look to have some sort of direction to understand, okay, can I do this thing? What was the outcome when X person or thing or whatever the case may be did this thing? Like, what will be the income or implications if I don't do this thing or don't approach it this way? Or what about if I do? Like, we look to guidance for everything. We look to comparison as a point of making sure we're on the right path, whether that's in a positive way or a negative way. And so, like these programs, like you mentioned, even the work that the lab is doing, the one is doing, both of yourselves through your own different things, through Trev, the Trev clothing brand, and Trev in general, that brand that you're building, because it far reaches clothing. And that's what I hope resonates with people through your Trevor life lessons and many of the other things that you're going to comment. It's not just a brand, it's truly a lifestyle. It's truly you, right? But even through yourself, Aaliyah, all the many different accomplishments that you have and that you are doing, conversation that we were having just before doing this, starting the podcast. Aaliyah is going to be a doctor. Like, that's no easy road to take, and that's nothing that will come easy in terms of how you navigate that. But again, having some sort of guide or thing to look to or person to look to, which many of us of Black communities, we look to people because we feel comfortable most with our people. It's important.
Go ahead. Just about that, the self determination and the guidance. A question that I have for you, it's kind of deep, but how do you find that self guidance within yourself? You're a very determined individual. You're very ambitious. So I was wondering where you get that from within you.
Oof.
Yeah, it's deep. But
this is what Feature Fridays is about. Keep it 100 with you, I don't necessarily know. But I have my times where I'm like, okay, like you just got to wake up and you just got to do it. Like, and you got to think about, if you don't, then who? Like, you, to a certain degree, because myself as a Christian, I do look to God for that guidance through everything. But you really got to think about the fact that you are the driver of your life. Like, it ain't no mommy, ain't no daddy, ain't no sister, ain't no cousin, ain't no, especially when it's okay to think about that when you're young and you're maybe even coming into your late teens. But when you're an adult, you just wake up one day and it's, I can sign on a student loan, let's say. I can sign on so many big things and responsibilities that's your name. That's you're responsible for that. You're responsible for you. So on the other side of that, I always think about, like, there's more to life than just what I see or what I look around. And the idea of complacency is so, I think, deeply ingrained in parts of our communities, especially with our older generations, for reasons that's not really their own. It wasn't their choice. They kind of had to be complacent, but I never want to be a person that struggles with, this I'm just be stuck here. No, thank you. Like, I'm going to always be doing something, taking the extra step if I can, pushing myself. So yeah, sometimes I don't know. But then I think about, like, again, my childhood. I think basketball played a really, really huge pivotal role in my self-determination and drive too. Because when you in practice,
baseline,
listen, whoop, and you gotta run, like, you're thinking about, okay, this is my team, but also, like, don't come last because everyone's gonna be mad at you because you're running again. And you're so tired, but you just gotta push. You gotta push. And the rough time, it will end. It doesn't last. It feels so hard, but, like, I always just think, man, once practice was done, oh my God. Felt so good. But also, wow, look at how hard I pushed myself. I didn't, you don't even know until you actually try to push yourself and you think, okay, I can do this. I can drive in it. And it's, again, I just use basketball as that example, but with anything, like, me just finishing school and finishing my master's and where I am now in my life, like, whoa, okay, I'm the first in my, like, immediate family on my mom's side to have this level of education, and I just had to push. It was not easy at all. My brain is still tired, but, like, you just, to your point, like, if not me, then ain't nobody gonna do it for me. What am I gonna do? Just sit here and fangirl over the thought of it? No.
I think you have a lot of your family, your community, and everything on your back. And I think you're the one that's like you said, if not you, then who? And you're paving the way. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is one of your big drivers that pushes you to be like, I'm going to do it for my family, for my name, for my community, and for everyone, really. I'm going to make it happen so that they can see it happen and so that they can make it happen for themselves as well.
Right. And I think that's something that, I mean, I don't want to speak for you guys as well, but many of us do carry it. And I do actually thank you for that, because that's something that I do think about quite a bit, and I always have. I've always felt this obligation to uphold that, and a responsibility, a due diligence that I have to pay, a homage that I have to pay to my community, to my family, to my parents, to their parents, like it's so far deeper. And when you come from different states of poverty and you reach a different level to where no one else has, like, okay, I can't stop now because I know I got to this level. And I mean, I had your support to a certain degree, but wow, I kind of did this all by myself. Okay, I got to pull us up next. But also, like, me and my sister, when we were younger, we used to joke a lot. Like, I said, oh, well, I'm going to make more money than you one day. And we still do. Like,
that
I asked her how much,
nature that you got.
I asked her, how much you getting paid a year? She just got raised. But listen, mine's coming. But we always did those type of things, you know, from
it's a friendly competition.
A friendly competition. And I welcome that competition is healthy, especially when it's in a friendly way. But, like, I'm a go-getter. I'm a person that I don't sleep. I will run on E if I have to. But again, like earlier to our conversation about me and who I am, I'm also a person that's extrovert. I'm also a person that likes doing different things, being involved in different things, and like it's not something that I do from a pride thing. It's something that genuinely gives me joy. Like I like to give, I like to do, I like to serve. I have a very servitude approach to a lot of things that I do. So I think that also plays into it. But yeah, my obligation that I feel to give back in ways that I never had, and not by anybody's fault, it just was the state of the time. But I know I have the power to do something different. But again, like a lot of people in my life made me feel empowered. And
I think that's important because you get a lot of people that come from our communities, like either Square, North Preston, wherever, they make it and then you never see them again. So then it's like for the young people coming up, it's like they don't get to see that model of like who they could be. And like for me, like I seek that. So there's people that I know that are from North Preston that I never even met before, but I look up to them like from afar because I know all the accomplishments that they made. And then it's like, but man, I wish that people could touch them and feel them and like learn from their experience so that they can, and I feel like podcasts and things like this are what's going to allow people to see the inside of the information. They're going to be able to be like, oh, I can do that. Oh, that person's going through that. Like I go through the same thing. So I realize like we're all similar and we can all make it. We all have the potential. It's just like finding the drive and pushing on the gas.
And to that point, like me moving back here, back down home, I lived in Toronto for the past 6 years where I did schooling and everything. And growing up, you guys probably heard this too, is like a lot of people used to talk about home as like, oh, well, like when you get the chance, just get out of here. Like there's something bigger, there's something better. Toronto's the biggest, closest big city. And you kind of idolize that because again, Halifax was not as developed and didn't have as much buzz in such a positive way as it does now, especially for our Black communities, right? Like it's funny enough, I love songs, music too. The song that comes to my head just now is Mike Jones. Back then they didn't want me, but now they all on us, right? Like that's people see. We live in a state right now where people see our culture, our Blackness, our history as something that's like amazing. Like everybody loves it, everybody wants it, everyone wants to be around it. Even certain parts of our city, again, what we were just talking about. Prime example, North End of Halifax. Historically a terrible, scary place for people. Don't go. But now look at it. Like I can't even walk down and see certain things and those type of things. But to that point, like me, when I moved away for school, I was like, okay, like I'm here for school. I stuck on my school path, was successful in that. But I honestly didn't think I was going to move back home. I was like, nope, I'm here now. I ain't going nowhere. I'm going to make it. But transitioning through the job role that I have now back here and like spending more time with my family, thinking about my life, like appreciating and growing more of like an appreciative and loving spirit of our actual province and like being like, no, like this is this is home. Like there's no other feeling for that for me. And so coming back, like I had that thought too, wow, I'm happy I'm back. I'm happy I'm able to shine myself in a different way where the youth can see it because like you said, there was points growing up too where I thought about this person, like, where are they? What are they doing? Oh, I wish they were here. And like, I don't want anybody to not feel like they can't talk to me or come up to me and say, oh, you lived away you used to live here? Who are you again? Like, I don't ever want it to be like be a forgotten face in our community.
And I feel like what you were saying earlier is like you have an obligation to the community. And I think like, not to put this on everybody, but I think like we all have an obligation to the community we were raised in or the communities that helped shape us to come back and to help cultivate the kids and make them or help them become something because we were able to get up out and how we were able to get up out. Those lessons are important to instill into them. So not saying that you have to, but you do owe your community for who you are, even if you don't think you do. And that can look very many different ways. It could look, if you're a person that's into activism and giving, it can look like that. It can look
just, being around and popping into different spots that you hung out as a kid, just to be a different face for kids to see. It could be just having a conversation. It could be popping into the old school you went to see if those teachers still. It could be anything.
That makes a difference. Like when you take the time to say hello to a kid and know their name and give them respect, and versus like being an older person saying like, oh, the kids owe me respect. It's like you give them kids respect. Them kids remember that. Them kids see you. Them kids like are inspired by the words that you say. It could change a kid's whole life and perspective, their whole way that their life turns out.
And to add on to that as well, like just speaking from like your own experience too, you can think of those people that just took the time to say what's up. And like for you, for instance, one time taking Black God again, I remember I seen you, I'll never forget that, and took the time out just to pitch the brand, say, yeah, I knew your sister and stuff like that. But those type of things mean a lot because I see Trev still do as like a celeb type of thing, right? So I'm like, wow, that's inspirational, right?
It's true.
That's crazy. I'm here right now. I'm joking. But
it's true.
You know what I mean? It's a really big impact that those type of actions, they might seem little at the time, but it really means a lot even to some of the youth that you don't even know.
Listen, I still remember many of what I call the older heads in my community, like growing up. You need some change to get some candy. Here you go. You need $5. Did you eat? Oh, the biggest thing, like growing up playing for the Y, was like them Saturday mornings when you got your community members coming out to see you play. Like the Y was always packed as a kid, and we always felt. You better go on the scoreboard today. You better listen. Listen, it was like. Those are when community shows up, and community that's deeper than your immediate nuclear family for one another, like that impact is deeper than I think we will all ever understand. And so to the point of like, I think we all do have an obligation to give back to our community in some capacity to, again, like I said, whether that's serving your community, standing up for, justice in different lenses, or just simply getting to know your neighbors, getting to know the youth, just showing them, oh, I'm here. Like,
because when you think about it, it's like, okay, you go on, you become successful, you go start a family in some other city where no one else knows you, and then it's like you die, and then it's like you get to heaven and God's like, man, I gave you all these resources to go back to community and be able to do certain things, or even teach them something, or even just be accessible. And then it's like, but you didn't do it, and now it's like, go to hell. I'm just joking, but like,
no, it's true.
So you're familiar with one word checkout. So we're almost close to the.
Not yet. I got another one for you. So just speaking, it's very important because we were talking about. You said you're a go-getter, and yeah, definitely that inspiration to want to keep going, to be that inspiration, to be someone that's accessible. So. You've been doing a lot of big things, and we didn't even graze the top of like some of these big things you've been doing. You mentioned masters, school. I know you're working, doing some nutrition type of things like that. So maybe just speak to that journey, and then maybe even some advice and things that you've learned throughout that process.
Thank you for that. And this is a prime example. Like, I don't ever really take much time to like reflect on myself. And I used to feel very uncomfortable talking about myself. But yeah, thank you. I will. So for those of you who don't know and haven't had the chance to follow my personal journey, I haven't been super active on social media personally too much. But I mentioned earlier that I lived in Toronto, Ontario for the past 6 years. And that was because I was there for school. So I went to Toronto Metropolitan University, formerly Ryerson University, and I did my undergrad there in nutrition and food science. And then shortly after, actually not shortly after, literally right after, like I graduated basically like May, June, and then that September I started my master's degree at the University of Toronto in public health with a focus on nutrition and dietetics. And my goal with my whole educational journey was to become a registered dietitian, which I successfully did. I got my license. Yes, I'm a registered dietitian. And I love nutrition. I talked about food a little bit throughout our time here together, but it's something that wasn't like a traditional pathway for me. I actually didn't even know. I never even seen a dietitian before. I'm not saying don't see your dietitians. Yes, see your dietitians. They're very important. But it's something that growing up, like I never had the opportunity to do. I guess I didn't need it, but it's something that I was never exposed to. And I didn't actually get exposed to what that was, or dietetics or nutrition from that standpoint, until I actually just randomly applied to the program that I did in my undergrad. And halfway through that, I heard this word dietitian. What the heck is that? Like everyone's, oh yeah, I'm going to take the dietetics route. And I'm like, listen, previous to my undergrad, I actually lived in Hamilton, Ontario for a year, and I was there on a basketball scholarship. So I was playing the basketball scholarship in the OCAA league And the school I was going to at the time, I was like, okay, I know this isn't it for me because, like, I don't like what I'm doing. I don't want to go back home because I thought Halifax didn't have much to offer me. And I just loved Ontario in general. And then I applied to the nutrition and food science program at Ryerson. And I was like, well, I like food. It seems cool. I can't go home because I already told people I left.
I'm weak.
God, that was the pride.
There's always home back.
There's always home, but like that was the pride.
Yeah,
like it took a lot for me to be like, oh, I actually left.
Yeah.
I did it. Mind you, I lived with family and stuff while I was there, but I did it. And then, yeah, I was like, okay, I can't go back home. Let me just do something because like my mom's gonna be getting on me. Okay, what are you doing with your life? So yeah, I applied to the nutrition program at Ryerson. And I didn't know what a dietitian was. Like I said, I just heard people talking about that. And I was like, I'm just trying to pass these classes. You guys are talking about all these things. And then I had went to a Q&A session to learn about it. And I instantly was like, that's what I'm doing. Like, I love food. I love people. I love health. I love medicine. I love all different types of things. So I took that route. And then I decided to do my master's, which my master's degree program was an integrated professional practice program. So it was 2 years long, but instead of writing a thesis statement like some other master's degree programs do, I actually did professional practice integrated learnings and stuff through that. So I got to learn dietetics from the clinical route, from the public health route, from the community route, and I did a bunch of work for free. But I had to do what I had to do, and it wasn't easy. I still worked though through my time there. I worked with the ANS lab and the One, which I'm forever thankful for the team and supporting me through that, and even having that opportunity to still work for such an organization that's so close to home for me while I live so far away. But yeah, I did that, and again, it was that schooling was 6 years straight, back to back. There was no breaks, and like I said, there was times I was like, okay, maybe I'm just gonna move back home because I don't want to do this. I'm broke. My brain hurts because I'm tired. I was also working all throughout my undergrad at a cafe, which I really enjoyed my job, but I lived on my own. I had to pay bills. I didn't come from a family that could support me financially like that. So I actually had to. Like, I would calculate the amount of shifts I had to do to pay my rent.
Yeah.
Okay, I just got to if I just do 3 shifts this week and that week, then I'll have literally just enough. Like, I don't even care about where I'm going to eat right now. I just have just enough to like keep this roof over my head. But self-determination came in there too, with thinking, okay, this is bigger than me. Yeah. Like, getting this degree and moving forward in this, like, I know this won't last forever. Like, you just have to grind. It was a lot of late nights and early mornings, and like, yeah, my fiance now through supporting me through that too, and his family, because listen, going over to get a plate of food that his mom cooked was just, it kept me. But yeah, that was the journey. And then, like I said, it wasn't always in my plan to move back home. I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do great. I did very, very well in school, was very successful. I thought I was gonna right off the jump take the clinical dietetic route. I built up all my, references and connections to some of the top hospitals in Toronto. And then I came back here. I'm like, you know what? This is where I need to be. This is where I want to be. And so during my last semester of my master's degree, I actually got the opportunity, which took me away from the One, ANS lab.
No.
We miss you.
I know, I miss you guys too, because the family that we developed was, listen, it ain't like that everywhere. But the opportunity took me away from the One, but it also brought me back home, which I'm forever grateful for. So I got the opportunity to step into my current role, which is a food security policy analyst for the provincial government. And this role was brand new. They had never done it. Like, it's like somebody just personally created it for me, because I did everything in my career in terms of academically around food. And so it brought me here, and for all of 2023, I was finishing up 4 months from January to like April, so my schooling, plus traveling back and forth from Toronto once a month to work here in person in office for a week and traveling back there. So that last year was a lot for me, but it eventually brought me back home, and I'm here to stay as far as I know until God calls me elsewhere.
We're glad to have you.
Yeah, that's just a little bit about me, and then I have some plans to start my own private practice, and I'm saying it now because I'm holding myself accountable to it, and I'll get it done because it's always been something that I wanted to do. But aside from that, like, diving deeper back into community. So coming out to events. Like, I'm so happy I was able to be the guest here, but like, just say, okay, who is doing what now? Like, where do I need to go to support and to show out to, and who's, just me trying to get a better understanding of, okay, where I like how I left home 6 years ago. It's home's not the state it was. In fact, Halifax has grown so much in the past 6 years. I'm shocked. That's structurally it's grown, but also in terms of young people in our community, I'm like, you were like a baby when I was here. Now you're old, which makes, okay, like, am I old? Which I'm not, but like, it's crazy. We're getting up there, I know. But yeah, when I left home, I was extremely involved in anything and everything. At one point, I founded my own nonprofit, not on my own, but I had a great group of friends who supported me in that, and we were fighting gentrification right on Gottingen. And some of the stores that are there now, y'all are lucky because you wouldn't have been there if I was stomping around the streets, or you wouldn't have been there without making sure some of our people in community were employed, because that was something that we were also fighting for too. But it's beautiful to see the changes that are coming up and coming about, and it's also beautiful to see, yes, I feel like some parts of our communities are kind of changing in ways that we don't recognize, but I think some of the people that are coming in doing the change are making a conscious effort to make sure they're hearing from community and trying to understand community and embrace and welcome community in ways in which historically would have never been the case.
Yeah, I think it's important for the folks on Gottingen to like honor like that street or that area is like honor the folks that came from there that did great things versus like just letting it dissipate. Like it's like when you walk down the street, I want to be able to think about the folks that historically did things for the community. And like right now it's just like, you know what I mean? You're getting like Miles Davis and stuff painted on the wall, but it's like, where's the folks from here that have done things? Put them on the walls. You know what I mean? Not just like let it dissipate. Like you know what I mean? I want to see the people that have done great things that are from like the north. You know what I mean? I don't know if you consider, well, yeah, the square is the North End, but like people that have done great things, like celebrate them, remind the people from there that these people did great things, so that when you're walking down Gottingen, it's like, it's a reminder. And then the people that are new there, that are gentrification or whatever, it's like they can learn the history and like be like, then they could tell other people like, oh, this is guys from here, or this girl's from here, or this lady, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's true. Like, and one of the things that comment just reminded me of growing up, when my great grandmother actually, when they got forced out of Africville into the square, she had her own unit. They used to say she had the best garden at the front of her house, and like real garden, fruits, vegetables, but also beautiful flowers. And at the time, the Chronicle Herald actually came by and did a newspaper edition on her in it. So I actually seen a photo like a few weeks ago of her garden in front of there. But I just was thinking to myself, like, how beautiful would it be to like see people in community uphold things like that? And it wasn't just her. There was many of our elders 100%. And stuff who took care of their plot of land, how big or how small, like that, in such a way that made the community beautiful and grow. But that would be something that would be beautiful to pay homage to. Maybe
someone needs to write a book. Someone needs to write like Square Town Stories or something like that, to where like the younger people, the older people can reminisce and the younger people can learn. Yeah. And it's like, you know?
It's true, yeah. And I think like when we think about how much change, again, a lot of our communities across the province, our Black communities are going through in terms of losing our elders, losing that oral tradition. Yep, our elders are literally the gatekeepers of knowledge. They're literally like libraries for us. And again, our last names are too, but our last names, I think, are only able to be that map if you have somebody who's around to interpret that map for you. And I think a lot of our communities are kind of losing those people, sadly, just due to life transitions. But yeah, someone does need to write a book or something. I'm saying I should do it.
There you go. Right. Rise up, come back.
Your own practice and a book.
Research, tap in, get the stories that you're not familiar with. Put some of the stories that you are. I think that would be like a great book, you know?
No, it will be. You guys got my wheels turning already. Look, Nate's over there like, she going again. Yeah. But no, it's these are the important things that like these types of platforms, when we talk about Feature Fridays, this podcast, like the fact that this will be around forever and people can come back and listen to this to reference this, but to also be inspired by our conversation, and just think about, okay, if they were talking about X, Y, and Z at this point in time, where am I at today, and how much does this apply to? Did certain things get accomplished? How can I carry the torch forward? And again, in terms of all the accomplishments that I've had, like I think about that a lot now that I'm back and just diving back in. So as busy as I still am with work, I'm finding myself going into a different life space where I have a lot more time in a more meaningful way, because I've accomplished a lot of my big goals that I set out for myself, and not too many people can say they did that, but I did. And what other big goals do I got to set now? Sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit. So what I'm gonna do, or I'm gonna say, is I'm gonna let you introduce the one word checkout for the folks. So
hey, no, we got a pertinent question. We got Nigeria and we got Ghana in the house. So I got it's a deep question, and then we go right to the one word checkout.
No
if you need a second to like process the question, that's okay.
I know you're not okay. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Because I might know.
So which jollof rice is better, Ghanaian or Nigerian?
I knew you were gonna ask about jollof rice. I knew, and I'm always gonna say Ghanaian jollof rice is where it's at. It's where it's at.
All right, that's our outro. Now
but both are good. I'm just gonna say Ghanaian jollof rice is where it's at.
From the nutrition herself.
Okay.
Both use great healthy ingredients though.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Definitely. Perfect. So we can go right into the one word checkout. If you want to introduce it like Trev said, that'd be great.
One word checkout time. It's
one word checkout time.
I ain't got no rhythm, sorry guys.
Okay. Today's one word checkout.
Let them know what the one word checkout is.
Oh yes. Listen, I should know. I should know. So for those of you who don't know, the one word checkout is where we take the time after the session has come to an end to choose one word that really kind of describes or encapsulates the vibe of the session, your week, your day, what you're feeling, what's on your heart, what's on your mind, in one word, and just say a little spiel of why you chose that word.
Spot on.
Listen, I still got it. But I think for me, my one word checkout is going to be power. I think it's something that we don't recognize enough as not only Black people, but just people in general, how much power you truly have. It's something that I am still learning to recognize and embrace, and like actually, I think myself comprehend. Like, I'm a powerful person. Like, I have a lot of power in different ways. And it's something that I hope other people do recognize and use for good things.
There you go.
So
I think your one word explanation, we might have to just keep using that for the interpret that for the next episodes. So my one word would be connectivity. So like I feel like a lot of the stuff we talked about resonates around community, and I feel like super connected to your community, to our communities, and you know, it's like, how do we continue to connect and rise up and, you know, connect and charge up, power up?
Yeah,
you guys got me thinking. I really think a lot on my one word, so y'all got to give me like 2 seconds.
Don't worry. Take your time.
Yeah. Take your time.
We all need a little like beat or something here.
Trust
Take
me,
your
don't
time.
worry.
Lay that over there, Market. Jamie.
Yeah, they got the beat maker back there.
I'm trying to think. I got a lot of different feelings I feel like I'm feeling right now, but I think the biggest word, and it kind of stood up because you mentioned it, but grounded. I feel like throughout this whole conversation, the word grounded really stuck with me. Not only what grounds you around you, but also God, and how you ground yourself, I think was another big thing that I kind of take away. So making sure, like, with your mindset and how you see yourself, not letting media portray what they think, let's say, Blackness is. Like, Blackness is you and yourself and what you bring with that, right? So just grounding yourself, and for the rest of the week, because I got a lot of stuff going on.
She's
so
thinking about her assignments, guys.
Yeah, you already know, man. I got like 10 different things, but definitely. So thanks for bringing that word.
Staying rooted. I think a lot of what you resonated with or talked about, is rooted, staying rooted. Come back to community, being for community, you know what I mean? Going and coming back so you can, you know, rise up.
Yeah, that's... Yes, staying rooted. Listen, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it, but it's so true. I know all of our words with one word checkout, they always complement each other, and it's like you can make a poem out of the power, connectivity, and grounding.
Because we're in sync. When you're in sync, there is times where it's like random words flying, but it's like it's because we weren't as in sync. But today we were super in sync, and I find like the times when we are in sync is like it's one word, and then it's a word that flows from that word, and it's Like, sometimes you got your word ready and it's like, oh, change my word to a different word because that inspired from the word you said.
Yeah.
So everybody in the comments, drop a word or one word in the comments, maybe hashtag it. I would say hashtag it. So one word, you'll be entered into the draw. So give us your one word. What's your one word for today?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Definitely.
Say your one word.
And Nickaya, before you even go, I want to make sure that you got everything off your chest that you wanted to say. So if there was any advice, one sentence doesn't even matter. Do you want to give to the...
Thank you for that. Yeah. Oh, geez. I think one piece of advice that I'd like to share with anybody who's listening to this, who's going to come across this, if you see this, share this. Yes. But I think my biggest piece of advice is like, if not you, then who? And I know I said it before, but it's something that I actually do think about a lot. It's something that motivates me to do things that I don't want to do. And it's something that motivates me to do the things that I tell myself I'm going to do or I tell others that I'm going to do. But truly, like, if not you, then who? I don't mean it in a cliche way or a simplistic way to get out of the piece of advice, but like, whatever it is that you're working towards, that you're thinking about, that you want to do, that you think you can do, even the things that you think you can't do, I'd actually encourage you to think about, if not you, then who is going to do it. And other people might do that same thing, but because you are you, there's only one of you, it's not going to have the same outcome or the same result as if you did it. So push yourself to do those things that you don't want to do in those times that you don't want to do it. And think about that. If not you, then who?
Thank you for saying that.
There's no age limit on it either. So if you're too young, or if you feel like you may be too old, it's not your time anymore. It is your time, and you can always make it happen. Like you said, if not you, then who?
Yeah. Love it. Thank you. So make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, do all of that good stuff because we got to run it up. You already know we got Nickaya in the house. Like, y'all can't disappoint right now.
We got Nickaya in the house. Watch your mouth.
Yeah, bye.
We here. Thank you so much, Nickaya, for coming on. We're super pleased for you to be our first guest. You're helping us because you already gave us the alley-oop to be the host before. Now you're giving us the alley-oop to give us our experience on a first actually host show. So thanks so much.
And the Feature Friday pioneer right there. And also another fun fact before we go is that she did come up with the Grapevine newsletter name. The Grapevine. You already heard it through the Grapevine.
Tell them about signing up for the Grapevine.
So if you guys want to get signed up, just make sure you reach out to us, anslab@onenorthend.com. We'll have that linked in our bios. So make sure that you guys reach out and do all of that stuff. And make sure if I don't see you liking and commenting and doing all that sharing, I might have something to say. So 100%. Make sure you do that.
Nickaya started this gangster-ish. So give her thanks.
Yes.
Give her flowers. Thank you, Nickaya.
Thank you. And thank you guys for just continuing to carry on the torch. Just doing the work. It's not easy. They're beautiful faces, but behind the scenes, there's lots of great people and hard work that's taking place. So thank you guys for keeping the flame still going and doing fire stuff with it. I'm super excited to see what this year brings for the podcast and just the guests.
100%. I feel like this ain't going to be your last time on here. And I feel like you're not finished being a host.
You free merch?
We about to see you again.
Yes, you need a guest host. I would be happy to come back. But yes, I want to encourage everybody, like Aaliyah said, share, subscribe to any channels, any platforms that they have. For many people in our community, this was developed as a place where you can come and you can have, access to the jobs and the resources. So take advantage because they don't come here and spend their time for nothing. So,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to our Feature Friday podcast. And just wanted to make sure that you guys are connected on all platforms. So wherever you're tuning in, maybe even leave us a 5-star review.
If you're watching on YouTube, hit like and subscribe.
And on our social medias as well, you can follow us at ANS Lab or at African Nova Scotian Youth Lab as well on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We got the whole mumble jumble. It'll be in our link tree in our bio.
Don't forget to enter our contest that we have in each episode.
And the way to enter that contest will be sprinkled throughout our episodes, so make sure that you're listening and paying attention.
Each episode may be different, but comment below wherever you are, Instagram or YouTube.
And if you don't use social media and you're one of those people, you can even reach out to us by email at anslab@onenorthend.com.
The details are in the episode description.
And last but not least, we want to make sure that we get you guys connected to our resource, our network of resources, the Grapevine newsletters. So to get subscribed, you can check the link in our bio and subscribe yourself. But if you're not that tech savvy, you can also email us at anslab@onenorthend.com and we can get you hooked up.
We'll see you on the next episode.
See you next month.
Let's get it.
Feature Friday.
What's your favorite thing about Fridays?
That's a good question.
The features.